Om Sthavagaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. Sudhismati purananam alayam karunalayam namami bhagavad padam Shankaram lokashankaram. So, I was mentioning yesterday that I am not giving a very elaborate interpretation or translation of the Upanishad verses which already mentioned here, because you're all familiar with that. But there may be certain portions which normally are not focused in a training center or elsewhere. So I will focus on that. So just before coming over here, I was started thinking of this. There is one quotation that comes earlier, that is from Tatha Acharya Pranidam Nyaya Ubavamhitam. That is from Gautama Sutras, that is Nyaya Sutras. That may need some explanation. Maybe I thought you are already familiar with it, but I shall explain that. The sutra is Dukkha Janma Pravritti Dosham Mithya Jnananam Uttarottara Apaye Tad Anantara Apayat Apavargaha. So this is the sutra. Gautama also has his own idea of apavarga, moksha. Tattwajnana nisrayasa adhigama, that is Gautama's dictum. When you get Tattwajnanam, then that will eventually lead you to moksha, apavarga. Now, in the sutra that mentioned, Dukkha, Janma, Pravarti, Dosha, Mithya Jnanam. So these 5 items are mentioned here. Now, also in the sutra, Gautama says, Uttarottara apaye tad anantara apayat apavargaha. So what it means is, suppose you give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and try to make it simple. That is, if you give the list, 1 dukkha, 2nd janma, 3rd pravrti, 4th dosha, 5th mithya jnana. So uttarottara apaye tad anantara apayat apavarga. What does it mean? You have to count from 5th to 4th, then to 3rd, then 2nd and 1st. So when you get this Tattwajnanam, according to Nyaya Siddhanta, when you get Tattwajnana, what happens is Mithya Jnanam is destroyed. And when Mithya Jnanam is destroyed, his previous one, dosha nasha happens. So Mithya Jnana nasha, dosha nasha. When dosha is destroyed, pravritti also is destroyed. And then when pravritti is destroyed, janma is destroyed. And with janma is destroyed, dukkha is destroyed. And then you get apavarga. Apavarga means dukkha nasha. So that's the meaning of uttarottara apaye tad anantara apayat apavarga. So when dosha nasha happens, pravritti nasha, then first mithya jnana nasha, then dosha nasha, then because of that pravritti nasha, and from pravritti nasha, dukkha nasha. Like that it happens. Then apavarga. So this is the essence of this mantra. It was maybe not clear yesterday, you can keep in mind. That's the meaning of uttarottara apaye tad anantara apayat apavarga. So that is one portion that I may have perhaps overlooked yesterday, I think, but it doesn't matter. It's clear. Now we have to begin here. Yeah. So yesterday also we mentioned, tayoranya pippalam swadati anasnan anyo apichakasiti, etc. All those mantras very familiar to you. And then eto mantro anatheya adishayadam nitya suddhadam cha brahmano darsayatah. Now from this mantras, you know that anatheya and adishayadam. So you cannot, it's not, this Brahmajnanam is not a result of putting certain things together, either guna adhana or dosha abanayana. And of course, before that, there is an example given there. You know, this previous paragraph. Swatma dharma eva sanstiro bhudo moksha kriyatmani samskriyamane avivrujyade. Yatha adarshe nikharshana kriya samskriyamane bhasuratam dharma idiche. This is a Purva is coming here. But Purva says, you know, when Atma is undergoing samskarana kriya, like, you know, for example, Ajya Avekshana kriya. An example like that, there are many forms of dhyana and other forms of samskarana kriya in all yajnas and yagas. Ajya, dravya, and even other utensils used for yajna, vrihi, all those things have to be clean, refined through samskarana kriya. Certain mantras, certain sprinkling, prokshana, all those things are different ways of doing samskarana kriya. So like that, his Atman also can be subjected to samskarana kriya. So that's the, an example is with adarshi, it's a mirror, take a mirror. And now in that mirror, you do sankarshana kriya, means Nikharshana means rubbing. Then what happens? The mirror undergoes a change, the Siddhantin says. The Guru says, if you clean mirror, rubbing mirror, whatever you would have meant in 8th century, or even earlier in those days, that mirror would have become capable of better reflection. So like that, Atman also can be subjected to this samskarana kriya through dhyana, even avekshana, means seeing, looking at silently with Ubamshu mantra without others hearing mantra, Ubamshu yaga. So like that, Atman also can be subjected to samskarana kriya. And this Brahma Jnanam is nothing but it is Brahma Upasana, as they understand it. Brahma Upasana, Laham Brahmasmi iti Upasida, etc. O Adityo Brahmedi iti Upasida, Atma Brahmedi iti Upasida, etc. Through this Upasana Kriyas, Atman can be refined, subjected to Samskarana Kriya, like a Nikharshana Kriya on an others or a mirror. Now Siddhantin says, no, mirror then undergoes a change. So anything that undergoes change is anitya. If it is nitya, it should not undergo any change. And then, but the Guru Bhakshan says then that mirror reflects things better, Atman reflects better. Then Siddhanta says, no, in that case, it's no more the real mirror. It has undergone change. It means it has changed into a better instrument for reflection. It's not the same mirror. You may say technically the same mirror, but it's not exactly the same mirror. When the mirror improves its quality, it is different from the mirror before it underwent its improvement, That's the point. It is not the same thing. A dirty cloth, one thing, and it undergoes samskarana kriya, it becomes clean. You may say the same cloth, but actually they are not the same. The previous one was dirty, and now it is not dirty, that means it is not nitya, it is anitya. If it is nitya, then the clean one should always remain clean. The dirty cloth also should remain dirty, but it's not so. If the dirty cloth is cleaned, becomes better, it means it is anitya. Like if Atma reflects better, Atma becomes purer, more refined through samskarana kriya, then that Atma undergoes change, and change means anityada. So Siddhantin says in that case, well, if it is nitya, then it's not the same thing. If it is anitya, then it means because of change. So that is the argument that is put forward later, which I referred to yesterday. Snana, Achamana, Yajnopavita, Adikriya. That also, the Samskarana Kriya only purifies the Jiva, which is nothing but Brahman or Atman, manifesting Sharira as an Upadhi or Antakarana, all these Upadhis. So that Upadhi Samkhata, the Upadhi complex is undergoing Samskarana Kriya. If somebody argues, these Samskarana Kriyas will help you to realize Atman, that is true. That is true. The mirror reflects things better, but the mirror has undergone a change, and change means anityada. In this context, the change is not happening, not affecting Atman. It is affecting, strictly speaking, is only affecting Sukshma Sharira. Which means avidya, kama, karma, desire, jnanendriya, karmendriya, and also what Patanjali called the karma, vritti, samskara, sankalpa, vasana, chakra. Patanjali uses the same mechanism, that is what is actually, that means karma creates vritti, different vrittis of the same identical type get solidified, becomes a samskara, strong tendency, and the samskara again influences sankalpa or vasana both. Vasana means natural attitude, effortless attitude, and then sankalpa, and that leads to repetition of the same karma if it produces good result, or avoiding the karma if it produces bad result, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, etc. So all these things together make a complex. That complex is undergoing samskarana kriya. But Atma is vilakshanam, is distinct and different from that complex. Because Atma is not utpadya, vigarya, samskarya, and apya, not either of this. Not apya, not samskarya, not vigarya, not utpadya. And there is nothing in the world, no kriya, no change, no karyam, that doesn't belong to either of one of these four categories. Any kriya or any kriya sadhyam or anything that's a result of kriya or any karyam should belong to either one or all or any of these four these changes, that is vikarya, utpadya, apya and samskarya. Because moksha is jnana sadhyam, it is not kriya sadhyam. If it is kriya sadhyam, it will be purush-tantra. If it is vastu-tantra, it is based by itself. So the conclusion is this ikshana kriya or samskarana kriya, nikashana kriya or prakshana kriya all can help us to become mentally, spiritually more qualified. But that is not moksha. Moksha is something that stands by itself. So I think so we are already here. Now, today I think we have to begin here. That's where we are going to begin. Yeah. Eto mantro anadheya adishedam aditya shuddhadam cha brahmano dasyetaha brahma bhavascha moksha. Brahma swarupa is moksha. Brahma Surupa or Brahma Bhavasya Moksha. Tasmanna samskaryopi moksha. Therefore, that is the main conclusion. Why it all happened? Because previously there is a strong argument that different samskarana kriyas, part of this Vedic rituals can create Brahmajnanam as a result of the samskarana kriya. Brahmajnana, Brahma Upasana, according to this, as Vedantis will understand it. And therefore it can help you to realize Atma. So Vedanta says no, the samskarana kriya cannot do. So that prompted Vedantists to conclude that Atma doesn't belong to any of these four: Utpadya, Samskara, Vigari, Rapya. Tasmanna samskaryopi moksha. Ataha anyat moksham prati kriyanupravesha dwaram na sakyam kenaji darsayidum. Therefore, no one can ever imagine that this moksha, towards moksha there can be any kind of kriyanupravesha. Means it cannot be interpreted in terms of kriya. Tasma jnanamekam muktva kriyaya gandhama tasya api anupravesha iha nabhavatiti. Tasma jnanamekam muktva. Except jnana, apart from jnana, kriyaya gandha here means lesha in Sanskrit, little bit. That's meaning here. Gandha means small, very little. Gandha matrasya api anupravesha. Now what did he? That leads to Shanka. Nanu jnanam nama manasi kriya. Now the jnanam itself, your moksha jnanam itself is a manasi kriya. Is it not so? So the Purva-paksha maybe is a possible doubt is projected to emphasize or to re-emphasize what has already been stated. Now Vailakshanyat. Vailakshanya means this manasi kriya, which also includes different kinds of upasana dhyana and jnanam. They are totally distinct, different from each other. Kriyahi namasa yatra vastu suruva nirapeksha iva. So nirapeksha iva means it doesn't consider, it has no apeksha, it has no relevance with regard to vastu suruva, kriya. And not only that, it is just mentioned as an injunction in the Jaimini Sutra, Shabara and others. It is not in any way connected to, relevant in the context of Vastu, real entity, the real thing. And one point, remember, I mentioned, we are coming to that later. When you look at something and then say that what it is Vastu Tantra. Suppose you are looking at fire, Agni. Then that Agni is this Agni, that is Vastu Tantra. Because your understanding, your jnanam is based on what you are seeing right in front of you. That perception depends upon the object itself that you are perceiving. That is the Vastu Tantra. But suppose you do bhavana, like for example Salagrama, this is Vishnu or Shivalinga, this is Shiva. That is not Vastu Tantra. That is Purusha Tantra. Because there is this sankalpa on something. The two things are different. So later you find, to make this here beside this state, Purusho Vava Gautamagni, Yosha Vava Gautamagni, etc. That comes in Panchagni Vidya Chandogya. So the Panchagni Vidya Prakaranam, there it comes, this mantra says. There you find Purusha is Agni, you do Sankalpa, Purusha is Agni, your Stri is Agni. That is based on your own Sankalpa, Bhavana. So also many of the Kriyas are all Bhavana Janyam only. Samskarana, Patnyavekshidam Majyam, the ghee purified by the Ikshana Kriya, Samskarana Kriya of Yajamana Patni. That is only bhavana. That is different from saying, yeah, this is fire. You are seeing Agni in front of you. That is fire. But in Sankalpa of Agni on Purusha, Yosho Purusha Agni, that is Purusha Tantra. The same Agni when you see in front of you blazing fire, if this is Agni, that is Vastu Tantra, this factual. But when Sankalpa of Agni on something else, it's not Agni, that is Purusha Tantra. Because that's what Kriyas are doing, these Vidhi Vakyas are doing. That's why he said, Kriya hi nama sa yatra vastu suruva niraveksha chodide. Chodide means is given as Vidhi in the Vidhi Shastra. Purusha chitta vyaparadhina cha. It is adhina means it is this is a kind of sangraha vakya which will be expanded and explained later. Yatha yasya devadaye havigrihidam syat tam manasa dhyayet vashat karishyan iti, or sandhyam manasa dhyayet, etc. So you mean you are meditating on the adhisthana devada of sandhya. The other one is an example taken from Yajna Yagas, where Hota is taking in his hand a vessel, and in the vessel there is Havi. Havi could be either Ajyam, it could be Vrihi, it could be Dati, any of these. So this Hota, one of the priests representing Rigveda, he takes up a vessel filled with Havi, and then he has to look at it, then he has to utter the mantra. You have to meditate on the mantra, but on the Devada. The Devada is not specifically mentioned. Why it is mentioned here, see, the mantra is this. Yasya Devadayi. So, it's not like saying Indraya Swaha, no. The Indra is specifically mentioned. Yasya Devadayi. Havigrihidam Syat Tam, the Devadam Manasadhyayit. Vashat Karishan. You should utter mantra Vashat. Then you should perform this ceremony, taking that Havi in a vessel, and then you should meditate on the Devada. Devada's name is not specifically mentioned. Yasya Devada mentioned. And the Dhyana. It could be any Devada. It is not, the bhavana is not done after knowing Devata. So it is Hota, it is a karma done by Hota. So what is an example of Purusha Vyapara Tantra? So it could be done this way or that way, or maybe otherwise also. Another point is, all these kriyas happened. There are two processes. One is Kriti. So Kriti is a subtle, a prayerakam is Kriti. In our mind, when we have a Kriti, we have a tendency, an urge to do something. That is mental, that is sukshma, that is subtle. That takes external form called chesta. The real ritual is chesta. So, and as a result of this, whatever you get, it cannot be Vastu Tantra Jnana. Because it depends upon so many different ingredients, the temperament of the Hota, Thiryu, Udgada, and the quality or purity of the ingredients used. And there are many factors. The Vrihi should be cleaned, the food grains should be cleaned, they should be prepared in such a way, you often find it done in a very primitive way, then only it will produce Apurva. So all are many things are interdependent, so many complex, subtle mind-boggling, meticulous preparations and attention to all the different aspects of this. So that is why it is Purusha Buddhi Tantra, or Buddhi Tantra, Kartru Tantra, or Purusha Tantra. It depends upon so many factors, the temperament and quality of things and overall environment and many, the mindset of the person who utters the mantras, all these things are there. That is why it is said, it can be heya or it can be aheya, upadeya. You can do or you need not do. And there are many factors, all the adhyas are also linked here. Vayodhyasa, and then asama adhyasa, all those, that person belong, you should be a grihasasami. If it is Ashwamedha, the person should be a king, should be a Raja. And then only that Kriya becomes perfect or it produces Apurva, otherwise not. Depends upon so many factors. That is what called Purusha Vyavahara Tantra. On the other hand, this Sarvana, Manana, Nididhyasana, etc. is actual practice. Of course, mentions Sodavyo, Mandavyo, Nidhyasavya, etc. It's Tavya Pratyaya, it means obligatory. But real Sravanam is different. The Sravanam, Mananam, Nidhyasanam, there also Sravana is there. And Vidhi also, Sodavyo, Mandavyo, etc. There are two different kind of things. Sravanam as sadhana sastya sambhati, that is the, fifth, sixth and seventh. So, Nitya Nitya Vastu Vega, Ihamutra Phalabhoga Viraga, Shama Adishakar Sambhati, Mumukshutum, Sravanam, the fifth. That Sravanam, technically in Advaita Vedanta, it means Sravanam or Upadesh of Tattwamasi. That is Sravanam. Now, that is not like Sravanam implied in Srotavya. There is Tavya Pratyaya is there, that comes. Link Tavya Pratyaya, all these indicate the obligatory nature, the binding nature of the Vidhivakyas. That's why they are all called Purusha Vyapara Tantra, means Buddhi Tantra, Kartu Tantra, etc. So that's why Manasadhyayi, Vashat Karishin, you should utter the mantra Vashat. O Sandhyam Manasadhyayit, you should do meditation on, it's also Manasi Kriya. That's why Nanu Jnanam Nama Manasi Kriya. So the Purvaksha means a doubt, a Shanga, earlier portion. Nanu Jnanam Nama Manasi Kriya. Jnanam also is a Manasi Kriya. Jnanam is some kind of a Manasi Kriya, but not Brahma Jnanam. See, our Antakarana gets some information that has got the nature of Jnanam, but that Jnanam also, even the Laukika Jnanam, is actually Vastu Tantra. Mentioned earlier, you perceive Agni as Agni is Vastu Tantra. You meditate or do Sankalpa on Agni on something else. That is Purusha Tantra. The other one is based on Vastu, only that Agni is the Vastu that you are perceiving in front of you. The other one is Bhavana Manasi Kriya. Both in a way, when you do Bhavana also there is a kind of Jnanam, extreme focused Bhavana. To be effective, to get benefit, it should be very much focused. So that can perhaps be some kind of a Jnanam, but it's only Purushantra Jnanam. Means how you are doing it. If you are an Uttamadhyari, your concentration will be very high, it produces better result. That's the idea behind. Dhyanam, okay. Dhyanam, Chintanam, Yadyapi, Manasam, Tathapi, Purushena, Kartum, Akartum, Anyadhava, Kartum, Shakyam. It's certainly Manasi Kriya, but then it is still, it can be done in so many different ways. You can do it one way, you can do it another way, you can totally do it in opposite way, or you may altogether drop it. That's all. The Purushatantatvad, Purushadhinatvad. Tanta means Adhina, Hedu, all these reasons, meanings are there. Purushadhinatvad. Jnanam tu pramanajanyam. Pramanam cha yadhabhuta vastu vishayam. Yadhabhuta vastu vishayam means, that's why that applies to ordinary things also. When you see something in front of you, you are seeing an object in empirical level, and you perceive that object as that object is pramanajanyam, because the object is prameya and you are pramada. So the pramiti jnanam, all these are logical when you see an object in front of you. Now Vedantins are arguing that Brahma jnanam at anubhuti level is as direct, more direct than pratyasha jnana. That's why it is called sakshat avarokshat Brahma. So avaroksha transcends both pratyaksha and also paroksha. It cannot be called paroksha because it's our own true nature. It cannot be called pratyaksha because it is not perceived at the empirical level with jnana, indriyas and mind. So yet sakshat avarokshat Brahma cannot transcend into direct perception. So, but you can say, if it can be compared, it can be compared to seeing something in front of you. It is as obvious, as factual as an object that you see right in front of you. Not like doing sankalpa on something. So Shankara is hammering on this argument that jnanam also is a manasi kriya. Antakarana is involved when you are perceiving something in front of you. That is the antakarana vritti is there. So it's manasi, that is true. But then that perception is, it depends upon, it is dependent upon the actual thing that you see in front of you, and not how you interpret it or how you do sankalpa about it. But other manasi kriya related to kriya vidhi, these Vedic rituals, it is only based on sankalpa. So all these different forms of upasana, pratyekopasti, different kinds of upasana. Sankalpa is very important in many of the puja kramas, so that's what it is. So that's why kevalam vastu tantram eva tat na chodana tantram. It is not the result of a vidhi vakya. No, it's not a result of a vakya. A vidhi vakya is not necessary for you to understand what you are seeing in front of you is ugly. A vidhi vakya, Vedas need not tell you that what you are seeing in front of you is an elephant. You know as a fact. If Vedas tell something else, then also it doesn't alter it. These statements are many where you find 1,000 Vedas tell you that what you see in front of you is something else. We don't accept it. So, on the other hand, Mimamsas have to accept it because Mimamsa, what Vidhivakyas tell you is the real thing, not what you see in front of you. That is Mimamsa's view. It's not Chodana Tantram, Napi Purusha Tantram. So the Vastu Tantra is neither Purusha Tantram nor Chodana Tantram. Chodana Tantram means based on some Vidhivakyas. And it's not Purusha Tantram, depending upon the human temperament and buddhi, etc. Just mean to say, Tasmat Manasatvayapi Jnanasya Mahavailakshyam, Mahatvailaksham. This Mahatvailaksham means that is, it is a very small name. Tasmat Manasatvayapi. Jnanam is Manasam, but still it is not the same thing as other Manasi Kriya or Kriya or anything else. There is a great difference between Kriya and Jnanam. Mahatvailaksham. Yathacha Purusho Vava Gaudamaknihi Yosho Vava Gaudamaknihi Ityatra Yoshit Purushayohu Agni Buddhir Manasi Bhavati. So Yoshit Purushayohu. So you are actually doing this Manasi Kriya. Aso Vava Gaudamaknihi Purusho Vava Gaudamaknihi Yoshit Vava Gaudamaknihi. There it is Manasi Kriya only. It is only some kind of a mental process as a result of sankalpa. Kevala chodana janyatva kriya eva sa purushatantra. It is only based on this vidivakya. You do see sankalpa, vidivakya is chodana. So from that you get this kriya, and that is only purushatantra. Yatu prasiddhi agno agni buddhirna sa chodana tantra. So when you see, that means that is prasiddhi agno means the agni that you see, the real agni that you see in front of you. If you have agni buddhi in agni that is right in front of you, it is not chodana tantra, it is not coming from vidivakyas. Vedas need not tell you to recognize agni as agni. It is actually vastu tantra, because why? It is dependent upon vastu sthiti, the real thing, the reality. So it is vastu tantra. Yatu prasiddhi agno buddhi, prasiddhi agno agni buddhi. Yatu prasiddhi agno agni buddhi, na sa chodana tantra, na api purusha tantra. Kim darhi pratyaksha Vishaya vastu tantra eva iti jnanam eva etat na kriya. It is not kriya. You don't have to do a kriya when you see Agni in front of you in order to understand it is Agni. So that is actually like Brahma Jnana. We read yesterday Mandukya and elsewhere. So when you are fully endowed with sadhana sattva sambati, then when you connect with this idea even through Sravanam, the Sravanam produces immediate result. That's the basis of Shabda Parokshavada. On the other hand, there is also another process. For example, many of us, when we first joined, we are interested in Shastras. But the importance, the implications of the Shastra Vakyas did not strike us as deeply as maybe now. So what does it mean? We are progressing, we are evolving, we are moving forward in obtaining the sadhana sadhushta sambhati. So we might have done Sravanam 40 years ago, 30 years ago. But our people study Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta universities, they do examinations. They also study this. But Sravanam is different. What the real thing implies and how we understand it, really understand it, depends upon what level of sadhana sadhushta sambhati we have reached. So in ascending order, in direct proportion to the progression in obtaining sadhana sadhushta sambhati, our even intellectual understanding of Vedanta Vakya, even intellectual understanding, not just spiritual perceptions, even intellectual understanding also it progresses. So that is a very important point to remember. Why? So we can that's why Guru Maharaj says for him, you can see God right in front of me, like seeing other things, That is what Jivan Mukta does all the time. For Jivan Mukta it is Pratyaksha Pramana. Reality is as Pratyaksha Siddha as a tree or a mountain they see right in front of them. There is no distinction. Why? So the Vastu becomes so obvious as we increase in our own progression in sadhana, chadushta sampatti. Sravanam always implies Tattwamasi, Upadesha Vakya. And what effect, what impact it produces depends upon what level of adhikaritvam, sadhana, chadushta sampatti that we have attained. That's the meaning here. Yatu prasiddhi apno apni buddhi na sa chodana tantra na api purusha tantra. Kim tarhi pratyaksha vishaya vastu tantra eva iti jnanameva idat na kriya. That is true. The pratyaksha vishaya vastutantra eva iti jnanameva etat na kriya. It is not kriya, it is jnanameva. Evam sarve pramana vishaya vastushu sarva pramana vastushu vidavim. So everything should be understood. I mean, all things which are revealed by pramanas, that is sarva pramana vastushu. In all objects which are revealed, which is pramana vishya, revealed by pramanas, this is the reality, this is the real thing, if we understood properly like that. So that's why whatever is pratyaksha pramana vishaya, like Agni, right, that you see it right in front of us, you call it Agni, that is Vastutantra. At the same time, when you do Sankalpa of Agni or something else, it is Purushatantra. Next, Tatraivam Sati Yathabhuta Brahmatma Vishayamapi Jnanam Na Chodana Tantram Tad Vishay Lingades Suyamana Api Niyojya, Aniyojya Vishayatva. So it's very important. This is a fact, this is Vastusthiti. So, Yathabhuta Brahmatma Vishayamapi Jnanam. Jnanam is a knowledge based on its own reality, entity. It is not Chodana Tantram. It is not a Kartavya. That's why it is called Aniyojya. Means there is only yoga in it. Tadvishiye lingadeha. So you find Kuriya, Kriyeda, Kartavyam, etc. Drashtavya, Sodavya, Mantavya, Nidhyasadavya, all this you find this linga. Sruyamana api aniyojya vishayatvat kunthi bhavanti upaladishu prayukta kshura taikshnyadivat. So an analogy is given. Suppose you take a sharp knife or a sharp instrument and then you hit a rock, piece of rock. That sharpness of the knife, the real purpose of the knife is to cut something, that's a kind of vyavahara, kriya. That itself gets nullified, it becomes invalid or gets destroyed because you are hitting a hard rock. So the sharp knife is important, cutting vegetables and things like that. But there's no value when you cut a piece of rock, piece of rock or hard stone. Then that knife itself becomes invalid. It loses its utility value. It cannot anymore be used for cutting vegetables or anything because it gets destroyed. So that is an analogy, very elaborate in the Bhashyas, other Tigas, Tatraivam Sati Yadhabhuta Paramatma Vishayam Api Jnanam Na Chodana Chandam. So Brahmajnanam, Atmajnanam, it is not Athena, it is not subjected to Vidhivakyas. In the context of Brahmajnana, Tad Vishaya Linga, they all these vibhaktis, Sruyamana Api, that you can find Kartavya, Drashtavya, Sodavya, Mandavya, Nidhya, Siddhavya, Tabi Pratyaya, you find Ling you find Linga Suyamanavi. So then it is called Aniyojya. So Niyojya is version is Niyojya called because he is obliged. He has a niyoga to do something like Prabhakara says. Vidhivakyas make you automatically a niyojya because you have to do the duty. Because there is Vidhivakya, so you have to do. In this context, aniyojyatvat or aniyojya vishayatvat, it is not niyojya vishaya. It is not a vishaya, not a subject for vidhi, kriya vidhi. So example is given, kundi bhavanti. It gets destroyed or it gets destroyed. Upaladishu prayuktaha. Upala means this rock with stones. Prayukta means, you use it cutting or something. That piece of rock or stone hard stone something. Kshura means knife. Taikshnya as well. So Kshurasya Taikshnya means the sharpness of knife. That's utility value. That has a value when you cut vegetables or anything else. Like that's the Kriya, this Tavya Pratyaya, Linga Dekha. All of them do have a value, utility value. When you say Sargagamo Yaje, somebody who is not looking for Brahmajnanam, he when he reads this Vidhivakyas, so, oh yes, I want to go to Surga, Aham Surgagama. So in that context, he feels he is in the yojya, there is the yoga for him to perform the yajna because of his own desire to go to Surga. That is according to Kumarila Bhatta, according to Prabhakara. The very fact there is a vithi, whether he wants Surga or not, yajeta is more important. Surgamatva is going to Surga is secondary, according to Prabhakara. In any case, there is no escape from obligation to perform yajna or yaga. And that is the real purpose of Vidhivakyas. Like the real purpose of a Kshura, knife, is Taikshnyam is meant to help you to cut certain things in this world. Like that, the Vidhivakyas are meant to help those people who want to go to Surga to be able to enable them to perform yajnas and yaga so that they will be able to accomplish their cherished goals. That's the idea behind. Then the question arises, Kim arthani tarki atma va are drashtavyaha sodavyaha ityadini vidhichayani vachanani. Why is it called vidhichaya? Because it cannot be called a vidhi. Because in the context of Brahmajnanam, it is not vidhi. So it's only vidhichaya. It cannot qualify for the status of vidhi. It's only vidhichaya, it is called. In the context, in connection with the Atman, it is not like vidhi. It is only vidhichaya, something like that, in that sense. Vachanani. Swabhavika pravarti vishaya vimukhikarnarthani iti brumaha. So the question was raised earlier. Kim arthani tarhi atma va are drashtavyaha sodavyaha ityadini vidhichayani vachanani. Then for what purpose do you have all these vidhichayani vakyani? So the answer is given. That is a very profound answer. And the practical utility of Shankaracharya even admits he is very compassionate. These vidhivakyas do have a purpose. And actually, what is the purpose of philosophy, for example? Instead of reading something else, we can read philosophy. At least that will take us away from reading trash. That's the idea behind. The very fact is coming here. Swabhavika pravarti vishaya vimukhikarnarthani. What is swabhavika pravarti? Or samskara, santakarna. We are not talking about monks, we are talking about general society, What's the use of mystical books, religious books, spiritual classics? There's a practical utility of these great books for the common people. Swabhavika pravarti vishaya vimukhikarnarthani. To turn them away from their swabhavika pravarti. Swabhavika pravarti means what are the natural impulses of a human being. So all these shadurmis, all mentioned here, many things are raga, dvesha, abhinivesa. These are the guiding principles that direct, that guide our mana, buddhi, chitta, antakarana, chitta, ahangara. These four components which constitute antakarana. They're being driven or directed or regulated by their desires, many things. Swabhavika pravarti is only in that direction. From that, Shastras, the Vidhivakyas like Sodavyaha, Mantavyaha, these Vidhivakyas will turn you away from this ordinary Swabhavika pravarti vishaya. That Bhashyam will explain what is it next in the next line. Idi Brahmaka, that's our reply. Yogi Bhirmukha pravartade purushaha. Now let's think of a person, an ordinary extrovert person. Ishtam me bhuyat, anishtam ma bhut iti. Ishtam me bhuyat. Let me be able to enjoy and have things that I want. That is swabhavika pravritti. Swabhavika pravritti vishaya. That is, normally we want to possess, we want to achieve what we like, what we have a desire for, or we want to avoid, give up what we don't like. So ishtam me bhuyat anishtam ma bhut iti. Nacha tatra atyantikam purushartham labhate. You are not going to have any transcendental spiritual goal in ordinary swabhavika pravritti vishayas. Because normally we are extroverts, Paranjikhani, Sudara, Vedana Swayambhu, etc. All these mantras and Kathovas elsewhere also. So indriyas are normally turned outward. So mind is being directed towards different objects, external objects. That is Swabhavika Pravritti Vishayas. Or there are many verses, Sabda Dvipanja Vireva Panja Panjatma Musugunana Vedhava Kuranga Madanga Padanga Bina Pranga Nara Panja Viranjidaki. All these, there are many that you are familiar with. I mean, examples to show, demonstrate how mind is being dragged by the five senses all the time. This is what Bhashyakara means by saying Swabhavika Pravritti Vishaya. For that vimukhi karnathani, for that mind should be turned away from this. Because why? Yogi bahirmukha pravartade purushaha ishtam me bhuyat anishtam ma bhut. This is a normal trend for every human being. Let me be able to achieve what I want to enjoy, what I like, and let there be no problem for me. Anishtam ma bhut, etc. Nacha tatra atyantikam purushartham labhate. There is no scope for any kind of transcendental spiritual purushartha here. Because we will be driven only by ordinary impulses, likes and dislikes, to avoid what we don't like and to achieve what we cherish, what we like. Tam atyantika purushartha vanjinam swabhavika karya karana sanghata pravritti gochara vimukhikritya pratigatma srodastaya pravartayanti. So what is happening is, such a person, to turn him away as far as possible from ordinary. But who is he? Atyantika purushartha vanjinam purusham. So the person who has some desire for higher spiritual purushartha or anything, for that person should be directed away from, or maybe turned away from karya karana sanghata pravritti gochara vimukhi kritya. So everything in this world is something I do, as a result I get something, and that's what actually guide our activities. This is how human life is going on. Pratyagatma sodastaya pravartayanti, to turn him away and towards some higher spiritual goal. Atmava are dastavyaha ityadini. So this is the real purpose. Now remember, the point is there are many differences with regard to the views of Mandana, with the author of Brahma Siddhi. For him, all these are vidhivakyas. For Mandana, some people say Mandana later became Suresharacharya after his conversion, after the debate Shankaracharya. It's a historical question, it's a matter of debate. Whatever it is, so and also there are differences, minor differences between Bhavamadi school and Vivarana school. The place and the importance or relevance of these vidhivakya, sodavyaha, mandavyaha, etc. Some people, the early followers of Mandana, will tell you these are all vidhivakyas. There is vidhi is here, vidhi is not here. These are different topics of discussion in vakyartha. among Vedanta, Advaita Pandits. It's not within our scope right now, of course. Yeah. So, the Atma Varya Drashtavyaha Ityadini. Tasya Atma Nishanaya Pravartasya Heyam Anubadeyam Cha Atma Tattam Udishyati. So, to turn the mind away from natural propensities and interests, to make it more, what you call antarmukha, more introspective, away from bahya pravrittis, which get reduced. That's the real purpose of all this sodavya, mandavya, etc. Now, to help such a person, tasya atmaneshwanaya, pravrittasya, so somebody who is already working for atmaneshwana, that person is now turned towards the flow, the current. Srota means current. That person needs these instructions. Are, Sodabhyaha, Mandabhyaha, Nidhyaseva, etc. Because that person as is being now drawn towards the flow, he is moving away from the Swabhavika Pravritti Vishayas, ordinary activities. For him, this is a great help. So, what happens, such a person alone is fit to be taught something which is neither heya or upadeya. Because Atma is not heya, it is not upadeya. Aheya and anupadeya, that is what Atma is. Only such a person will bother to think of something by attaining which there is no special benefit. So it is not upadeya. But then, if you don't have it, you are not going to lose much at empirical level. Nobody is going to lose anything by not becoming a spiritual seeker at empirical level, from a material perspective. And nobody is going to attain something at empirical level by Atma Sakshakara. So it is Aheya and Anupadeya. Atma Tattam Ubudishyati. Idam sarvam yadayam atma yatra tasya sarvam atma eva bhut tat kenakam pasyet kenakam vijaniyat vijnadaram ade kena vijaniyat ayam atma brahma ityadi, etc. Now, next one. Yadyapi akartavya pradhanam atmajnanam. So, this atmajnanam doesn't give much importance to yajnas and yagas. That is akartavya pradhanam. It's not kartavya pradhanam. It is not much closely connected to yajnas and yagas. It is akartavya pradhanam. Atmajnanam. Hanaya upadanaya va na bhavati. It is not something to be attained or something to be given up, because it transcends both. Tataiva idi abhivagamyati. Okay, we accept it. That is true. This Atmajnanam is neither heya or upadeya. Well, that is a fact. Tathaiva idi abhivagamyati. We understand it. We perfectly agree with that. Alankaro hi ayam asmakam yad brahma vagato satyam sarva kartavyada hani kritakaryada cha iti. In fact, if somebody tells you, well, after attaining this Atmajnanam, all kartavyas, all obligatory rites, Vedic rituals, obligation to perform Vedic rites will disappear. And also, Kritakaryada. Kritakaryada is state when we feel we have done what we ought to have done. And that happens only when you go beyond Krityada. That is the idea. So long as we have the feeling, I have to do something, we will never have the feeling, well, I have done what I want to do. So one should transcend the Krityada, Kartavyada bodha. I have to perform the yajnas and yagas. This is in Mimamsa sense. I'm obliged to perform the yajnas and yagas. It's my duty. So long as we have that conviction, there will be no real kritakartita because yajnas and yagas have no end. This is human desires have no end. So Bhashyam will tell you later. So another reason. Through yajnas and yagas, you will not get kritakartita. Only by transcending yajnas and yagas. Again, you find in the Brihadaranyaka Bhashya, Bhashyakara says, you don't give up yajnas and yagas. Yajnas and yagas drop you when you don't feel you have anything to achieve by performing that, or you are going to lose anything by not performing that. It's not like Nitya Naimitya karmas, etc. The Nitya Naimitya karma, and if you don't perform Nitya karmas, it is a great problem. You have to do parihara. If you perform it, nothing, you don't go to go in anything particularly, it's your duty. So that sort of thing again is within the Mimamsa level. So when a person transcends, it goes beyond Kartavyada, the feeling like, well, it is, so the Vyaha, that Tavya Pratyaya makes you obliged, feeling obliged to do something. Yacheda, you have to do it. So you feel an obligation. We don't feel with that obligation when we attain Kritakartita. Why? Because that it is Kritam. That is Kartavyam is Kritam. That means nothing more to do. So that's the importance here. Alankaro hi ayam asmakam yad brahmatma bhagatu. That Brahman I'm seeking, that is my own true nature. That is brahmatma bhagati. Satyam sarva kartavyada hanihi. And the sarva kartavyada hani, that means tyaga, that alone can give a person kritakartita. That's the idea behind Chaiti. So again we have to remember, this is again misunderstanding. Frequently superficial translations are responsible for that. Shankaracharya was against karma. You should not do anything. It's wrong. No, Shankaracharya only tells us that the rituals should be given up. Again, it means we go beyond rituals. That is why, sarva kartavyada hani. That means the feeling that I have an obligation to perform yajnas and yagas. That feeling goes away. That is sarva kartavyada hani. Not that tomorrow I want to perform yajnas. That doesn't happen like that. Mimamsa is full of desire. They've been doing karmas, kriyas. One day he takes a decision, well, I won't do it tomorrow, next year onwards. That is not sarva kartavyada hani. He reaches a point of spiritual evolution where he is no longer feeling under obligation to perform yajnas and yagas. That is the implication of sarva kartavyada hani. Kritakartyada chaiti. Tatha jasruti atmanam chit vijaniyat ayamastiti purushaha kimichan kasya kamaya sariram sancharit etat buddhva buddhimansya kritakartyascha bharata. That is Smriti Bhava Gita. Smriti tasmadna pradipatti viti vishayataya brahmana samarpana. Again you have to go back to previous thing. Pradipatti vishaya. That is. All is coming from Vrittikara. That is, pradipatti is a secondary vithi, is an anga of utpatti vithi, the original mukhya vithi. So, when you perform any other yajnas and yagas, there are some minor karmas, kriyas to be performed, which are prescribed by pratipatti vidhi, like atmanam brahmeti vasida. Like that they will tell you, Vrittikara Sanadas will tell you, the aham brahmasmi iti uvasida, the bringing upasana. This is the prescription, this is Vrittikara madam. So that is being questioned and demolished. That is being refuted. Tasmanna pratipatti viti vishayataya brahmana samarpanam. It is pratipatti vishaya, brahma jnana. Okay? Okay, now, next one. Here, again, this is the followers of Prabhagara school, Prabhagara Mimamsaras. Yadavi kejit ahu, kejit means Prabhagara means here. Pravritti, nivritti, vidhi, tatshesha, vitirekena, kevala vastuvadi veda bhago nasti iti. Tatna. So, this is a very, very important point, important portion of the book. That is, Prabhagara school. Now, according to Prabhagara, Brihadi, well-known book, Atma is karta. Atma is doing all these karmas. So it is an obvious fact. It's loka prasiddha, very much. It is Sruti prasiddha. So that Atma or any statement regarding the Atma can never be the actual significance or implication of Vedartha actually. Not only that, apart from that Atma, there is no such thing as Brahman. And Bhatta school denies even the existence of Brahman. It's called Brahma is Asat according to them. The reason is Veda Pratibhadyam is only Kriyas. Now, in the Bhamadi, there is a short statement by Vajaspati by which he refutes this view. Karyabodhi idha chesta lingam kashadesh tatha siddhabodhi arthavattaivam shastratam hidashasanad. This is Bhamati. So what it means is, the Vidhivakyas of Vedas, a person, he understands that, and then he thinks that he has reached, he has attained everything. And then he feels, very happy. Now the point is, similarly, a person, see, you have to Karyabodhi ita chesta linga hrsradesthata. When you perform, when you understand Vidhivakyas, then hrsradesthata. And when you understand, you feel you have understood, perceived the implication of these Vedic statements, you feel a kind of joy and you go about making preparations for Yajna Sanjaga. Similarly, Siddhabodhi arthavatta evam shastrattam gita shasana. Similarly, when a person realizes these Vedanta Vakyas, the implication, which is Nitya Tattva Bodhaga, Bodhagam is called Vedanta Vakyam, according to them. So Vedanta Shastra also, like that, gives a person a sense of extreme contentment. So this is the idea behind it. And then he also explains Upanishad, that's well known, the Vyutpatti Upanishad mantra is mentioned here. It's very relevant here. Upanishad Kvipartiya Shad Visaranam, etc. Visaranagati Avasadana, etc. So all Vedanta Vakyas which are linked to Brahma Vidya will automatically destroy all these dukkha or negativity, as you call it in a general way, and that gives you a sense of an internal serenity and contentment. That is Shastratvam Hidashasana Siddhabodhe Arthavatta evam Shastratvam Hidashasana. Before I mentioned Harshadestatha, just like a Mimamsaga who reads Vidhivakyas, then he performs the yajnas and you feel happy about it. Similarly, when a seeker of spirit, Brahman, when he realizes this Siddhabodhe, when he understands that supreme truth, he also feels the internal satisfaction That is the real implication of Kritakrityada from Sarva Kartavyada Hani. This idea behind. That's the implication. Now, that should be read in this context because according to Prabhagara, Pravritti, Nivritti, Vidita Shesha Vidiregena. So either a Vidivakya should give an injunction like Pravritti or Nivritti. I mean, for example, Mam Imsya, Sarva Bhudani, or Kalanjanana Bakshi, all these are Nivritti Para. Swarga Kamo Ejeda is Pravritti Para. Or the Shesha Vidiregen. Or if there are other Vakyas, they should be interpreted as Shesha or Anga. A junior or maybe a minor part of the main Utpatti Vidhi or main Vidhi. Other than that, Kevala Vastuvadi Veda Bhagu Nasti. There is no such thing as a section of the Vedas, the Vedanta Vakyas, Upanishads, which talk about, which teach Kevala Vastu, Brahman, which is Vastu Tantra, which is not Purusha Tantra. That means, in other words, there is nothing as Purusha Tantra in Vedas. Everything is Vastu Tantra. Why? Either it is Pravritti or Nivritti or the Shesha. Shesha means here, Shesha means Anga. Something to be interpreted in connection with either Pravritti Vidhi or Nivritti Vidhi. Yesterday, Berkhishin Rajadam na deyam means. That is a Nivritti. So otherwise the previous other statement, Saha Arodhit. There is no way to get a meaning out of it. It's a statement. It is actually a Kevala Vastuvada. Means, it's a statement of fact. Saha Arodhit. Raja Sogechadi. Saptavadi Vasundhara. All these statements. It is like that. This is the Kevala Vastuvada. Like Aham Brahmasmi, Tattwamasi. According to Prabhagara, all these belong to statements like Saha Arodhit, etc. So Saha Arodhit is made meaningful by making it as an Anga of Berhishina Deyam, that is a kind of Nivritti Vakya. There is no other way out. Like that, certain mantras should be made part of another Vidivakya as Tutyarthavada or Nindarthavada. That is as a Shesha. That is why Pravritti, Nivritti, Vidhi, that Shesha Vidiregena, apart from either Pravritti, Nivritti or Shesha. Kevala Vastuvadi Veda Bhago Nasti Idi. If this is the argument of Prabhagaras, is that na. Why? Aupanishadasya Purushasya Ananyasheshatvad. So, the absolute truth, the Brahman, the absolute truth, Brahman, Chaitanya, that is depicted in the Upanishads, it cannot be an Anga for anything or Anga for anything else. It may not be a part, Anga or Shesha of anything else. That's the reply. Okay, now we can have interaction. We have just about 10 minutes. You can ask. Or if you don't have time, you can finish one more sentence and complete. Okay? So, Yosau Upanishatsu eva adhigataha purushaha asamsari brahma utpadyadi chaturvidha dravya vilakshanaha supragaranastho ananya sheshaha, etc. Naso nasti adhigamyade idiva shakyam patidum sa eshaneti nityatma ityatma shabdat atmanascha pratyakhyadama shakyatvad ya eva niranarta tasyaiva atmatvad, etc. Now yoso Upanishatsu eva adhigata purushaha. So this Purusha, this Brahman, this Atman, which is depicted and taught in the Upanishads, it is asamsari. It is asamsari, it can be interpreted in many ways, sadvikara adhida, trigala abadhida, in the sense that it is not subjected to birth, death, rebirth, all this in that sense. That Brahman, it is, Dehendriyadi Vedirikta, distinct and different and transcending all these things we are subject to samsara. It is beyond Sanchida, Agamiga, Prarabdha, Karma, all these different interpretations. Samsaraditi samsara means is traveling like a wheel. Your wheel has no beginning or end or middle part. Every part is a beginning, an end, and also a middle. A wheel doesn't have a beginning. So like that. And that Brahman is the topic of discussion in the Upanishads. Utpadyadi chaturvidha dravya vilakshana. In Utpadya, it's not Utpadya, Samskarya, Vigarya, Rapya. Chaturvidha dravya vilakshana. All dravyas are subject to any of these changes. Or they are either produced or they are made to come into existence through vikara or samskarana or utpada, not utpadya. So all these that is utpadyadi chaturvidha dravya vilakshana. It is not utpadya, samskarya, vikarya or apya. Supragaranastaha. It exists in itself. It is mentioned in the Upanishad Prakarana. Nasu asti adhigamyati idiva shakyam padidam. You cannot say that such a thing is not understood, it is not subject to anything. That Atma, again, Esha Niti Nityatma. This is how the Atma Shabda is used. Esha Niti Nityatma. Nityatma Shabdat Atmanascha Pratyakhyadam Ashakyatvat. No one can reject his own existence, because the one who says, I don't exist, he himself is saying he doesn't exist. So his statement is a self-denial. He says, I don't exist, but he himself is making the statement. So then they will describe this. Maybe tomorrow we can have interaction. We can stop it. Be too much otherwise, So any other doubt you can ask. We'll give detailed description of these statements tomorrow. But tomorrow is today evening, of course, after 2 hours. So I'm happy that you don't have any doubt. Absolutely, there's no doubt. Fine, okay, yeah. So one Mimamsa is very important, as I mentioned earlier. Mimamsakas give different interpretations. That to give some of it to keep in mind. Different kinds of interpretations are given, either kriya, samskarana, or different dhyana rupas. All these either different sambad dhruva dhyanam or adhyasa rupa dhyanam or some kind of samskarana kriya, some kind of arthavada, or it's just an upasana. All these arguments are given to deny the fact that the Upanishads constitute the highest philosophy of Vedas, and that the Upanishads talk about Brahman, which is beyond all actions, beyond all kriyas, which is indestructible, which cannot be produced, attained, or refined, or transformed. So that is not acceptable to Mimamsas. That's the idea behind. Okay, so thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.